What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Mayrand podcast. The podcast is now on Patreon, which provides a great way for the listeners to help support the podcast. With your support as patrons, you'll be entered in exclusive monthly raffles this season, as well as getting shoutouts in the podcast, seeing behind the scenes, and even getting the chance to have a question asked to guests. Your support helps out a ton, so check it out at patreon.com/the Mayrand podcast. Today, my guest is Kaya Turski. Kaya needs no introduction. She's one of freeskiing's GOATs. During her career, she was one of freeskiing's most dominant skier ever, with her 10 X Games medal, including 8 golds. For a couple of years now, Kaya has retired from professional skiing, and she's now back living in Montreal. So I met up with her last fall to talk skiing. We talked about her life now that she's retired from skiing, head injuries and how they've affected the end of her career, and also how she's dealing with them now, her domination of the slopestyle competition scene, filming with Level 1 in the streets, and a bunch of other super interesting things. It was a super talk with one of the sports GOAT, and I hope you enjoy it. Big thanks to this episode's sponsors, Access Board Shop, Planks Clothing, and Dic Anns Restaurants. Also, shout out to the patrons, Will Cameron and Raf Diaz. Thanks for your support. Let's go. Kaya Turski, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much.
I'm really glad to have you.
I'm really glad we finally made this happen. We've been trying to connect for a while. So.
Yeah, I was trying to have you on season 1. You were one of the first ones I had in mind when talking to ski legends or people who had a big impact.
Wow, thank you.
And yeah, I'm glad we're at your place, chilling, drinking coffee.
That's right. I just moved back to Montreal not long ago, about a year ago, and settled into this spot. And yeah, it's lovely to be making my home here and have you coming by.
How's it living back in Montreal?
It's great. It's great. You know, I left Montreal when I was 17, so, about half my life ago, which is crazy now to think about. But yeah, I left very young, so I never really experienced Montreal as an adult, I'd always come back here and there and visit my parents, but it was never a long-term thing. And so yeah, it's cool. It's like I'm getting to know the city for the first time almost, and refreshing my memories and reconnecting with a lot of old friends. So that's wonderful.
You were out of Montreal for 15 years?
Yeah, about 15 years.
And what was that like? I guess you lived in Whistler a bit?
I lived all over the place. When I first decided to, give skiing a real go, I moved to Whistler and was there for the season. And then, I don't know, over the years, it was, kind of bouncing all over. I spent a great deal of time, many seasons, basing out of Mammoth in California, which I loved and still love. And Whistler, Colorado sometimes, and then LA also, because some of my main sponsors like Red Bull, Oakley were out there, and it was close to Mammoth. So I've been kind of all over North America, and I've found my way home.
How was living in LA while skiing? It seems there's a couple guys that did it. There was Poor Boys that was based off in LA close to it.
Yeah, that's right.
But it seems odd as someone from Quebec, I guess, where winter is 12 months out of 12.
Yeah, it is odd, I think. I've gotten that a lot. I think at a point, maybe it was halfway through my career, 5-6 years, actually, so going back to where I started as a rollerblader. Mm-hmm. Some people know that, some people don't. But
For those who don't, they should go on YouTube and watch it because it's crazy.
I guess so. Yeah, it is crazy. I look back and I'm like, wow, I was a wild child. But yeah, so I grew up rollerblading. It's really my first true love. And so it was never really this super gung-ho, cold, snowy mountain person. I had skied in my life, but I really thrived in the skate park. And so when I transferred to skiing, all of that, all of what I learned in the skate park really translated well, but it didn't mean that I became all of a sudden this cold. Right. I actually run very cold, so which means I'm always cold. Mm-hmm. So LA really worked out for me. I was just traveling a lot, always in the mountains and obviously gorgeous and wonderful, but always in the cold, right? So, and traveling so much, when you're skiing and competing, you're on a plane every week, so LAX was just a really easy hub to get in and out
Yeah,
of
at that
too.
point, it's not as if you're in BC and sledding out of your house. You're more like international traveling every week. So.
Yeah, it was just basically a place to, stop in, refresh. And then also a really big part of that, I don't mean to draw out this answer, but this is really important, is that I lived about 10 minutes away from Red Bull headquarters in LA. And those guys really, really, were through and through one of my greatest supports in my career. I mean, they provided like everything from physiology tests to, metabolic testing, blood tests, so sports psychology. Anytime I needed orthopedic, scans, anything, like it was all done through them. And so I really, I took advantage of that. And they had an amazing gym in the back, trampoline, like really a great setup. So yeah, it was just prime.
Would have been a shame not to use that.
Yeah, all athletes at Red Bull, I think, had the opportunity, but I just took it. I moved right there. I moved right next to them and was there all the time. And yeah, I got really integrated with them.
Just as much as right now with national teams, it's good to be close where the training centers are and everything. That was kind of your equivalent, like having your sponsors close by and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still kind of talking about when I made the move to LA, that was still kind of the time before Team Canada was like truly formed. So and before these national teams were formed, we were just kind of, we were like our own entity, right? We weren't a team. We were just doing our own thing. So everybody was posted up kind of where they wanted to be. So yeah, it is the same concept.
I saw on Instagram recently that you got back into blading a bit for fun, I guess.
Yeah.
How's that been, going back to, those teenage passion stuff?
Oh man, I love rollerblading. I love it, and I always will. And I'm through and through a rollerblader at heart. And the amount of, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
The amount of shit I get for being a rollerblader,
Really?
Yeah, jokingly and like whatever. I wear it with so much pride. But of course, people have given me shit all my career for being a rollerblader. And yeah, we kind of talked about this a bit, but I have been dealing with like some serious post-concussive stuff for quite a few years now. So, and basically most things trigger my neck just because of all the, I guess, wear and tear I've done on it. So I really, since I retired in 2017, I haven't done sports. I can't really without it really triggering my migraines. So I'm literally just rolling and trying to build up a tolerance, because that is something I really do miss in my life. And I do hope to get back in the skate park sometime.
So yeah, that was my next question, asking like, are you still going and hitting rails and stuff like that? But the answer is no.
No, not right now. And I'll get there. Probably not like the crazy street stuff I used to do, but I'd love to get in the skate park, ride a mini ramp like that. That's the jam.
Just rolling through.
Yeah, just rolling around, pumping tranny. Like, it's the best feeling. It's the best feeling. I recommend it to all.
Yeah, Nick Martini was saying the same thing when I talked to him, is that he can still ride a jump, let's say, but I'm paraphrasing, but it's like he can't throw a cork 7 or something, because he can throw it, but it's like, it's not going to be good when he's going to land on those knees. So it's the only thing where he's like, yeah, I miss it, but I just can't.
Exactly. I'll never do another 100-foot kicker kind of thing. And just because my body will not, it'd probably explode at this point. So yeah, you retire and you keep doing the things that you can.
You talked a bit about concussions and things you have to deal with about that. There has to be a big part of that for you that comes from skiing. Is there some from blading? Have you had some, like, because when we see your videos on YouTube of you were hitting big urban stuff, where in skiing, I've done a bit of blading also. Blading is rough when you fall down. Like, you're on pavement and there's some potential to have like big injuries also.
For sure. Well, on the concussion side, to begin with, I never really suffered, quote unquote, like a documented concussion. I never had a document. Okay, let's restart that answer. Hi, hello, mic check. Hi, Turski, back. Okay, so it's hard to say with concussions. I never had this like horrible concussion where I was seizing and foaming and all that stuff. Like, it was just one day my body just said enough. Like, and after a lot of tests and therapies and injections and this and that, they've just basically, I mean, all the practitioners I've seen, and there's been many, basically like the general consensus is that like it's just over time, so much whiplash, so many, likely many concussions, just not the kind where I would pass out, you know, or get knocked out. But, you know, and now with concussions, they're showing like you don't even have to fall to experience it. You can actually land really hard. It'll travel up your spine. So, you know, unfortunately that, you know, or fortunately, all of this information is coming out, you know, more research these days. But unfortunately, even 5, 6, 7 years ago, I mean, for me, it was 10 years ago when this started, but, you know, that stuff still wasn't all that known, you know. And so, so that was tricky. And then the second part of the question, what was it?
Related to rollerblading, do you think there are some
of that baggage that comes from there? For sure. Oh yeah, and then you said rollerblading is so rough. People always say that, and it is, but for sure it's related to rollerblading. For sure it's related to skiing. All of it. Both. You know, I don't know. You know, I can't say which contributes more, but I know I've put my body through a lot, so I understand why I am where I am, and I'm, you know, paying the price, if you will. I'm just healing, you know, for it. And then, you know, it's funny that people always say, like, skiers are always like, oh my God, rollerblading's so gnarly. Like, I never broke a bone. I never tore a ligament, nothing. You know, I had, you know, bruises and scrapes, but like nothing. I mean, when you go to skiing, it's like everything is literally like 20 to 50 times the size. Yeah. And so those impacts can be really rough. And I, at least in my experience, I did a lot more damage to my body skiing than I did rollerblading. But no doubt, I mean, it's a lot of concrete you fall on, a lot of rails you're hitting, you know, with your legs and shins and all the body parts. So yeah, both sports really work you for sure.
And now it's time for a first sponsor break. Access Board Shop is a sponsor of the podcast once again, and I'm stoked to have them. They support dope athletes, they sponsor video projects, and they put together the best events. They've been in business for close to 20 years, and they're still passionate about everything skiing and snowboarding. Whatever you may need this season, they've got it. Skis, boots, bindings, clothing, outerwear, you name it. So if you're in Quebec, go check out their shop in Saint-Sauveur. If not, check them out online at accessboutique.com. Support companies that support skiing. Support Access Board Shop. I guess when you get to your level, skiing gets rough because you hit humongous jumps. Rather, when you're blading, then you stick to smaller stuff. Or you hit some big stuff, but I'm guessing when people have blading in mind, they have in mind like a stair set or a down rail. But when you were skiing, you weren't getting hurt on a simple down rail. You were pushing it and like going super big, and that's where skiing gets really crazy.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, mainly my injuries were, I mean, other than like the concussive, arguable, or debatable concussions, just a lot of knee issues, you know, and that comes from like large impact, torque through the knee. So yeah, you land and you're going, you know, that at that speed with that impact. If it's not perfect, it can certainly, it's certainly more power than your knee joint holds.
Yeah,
you know?
And were they all jump related? Like none on rails?
Yeah, I believe so. Let me think about it. Yeah, all four. The fourth was like a correction, but yeah, they were all on jumps.
Was it in similar tricks or similar landings, or were they all different?
All different, you know, like all different. Yeah, I mean, I remember all of them so well. I guess you never forget these things. It's funny. I never think about this stuff.
That's crazy. Like I talked to a bunch of guys because you guys all have to deal with knee injuries, and sometimes we talk about it in a movie segment or something like that, and the memory is kind of drifting. But when it's an injury, it's like it was that day, it was that condition, it was windy, it was that jump.
This is the song I was listening to. Yeah, totally. This is the feeling. Yeah. So no, you know, once it was just a plain 360, whatever, and my knee gave out. Another time was a cab 9, so more deserved, you know. And then And then another time was just fatigue. I was just tired, but it was on a jump as well. And yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of bad luck. You land a little off, and
yeah. You were talking a bit about concussions and how much it's a new thing, and we both are not old. We're not like boomer level. I've seen people in the park younger get like falling off a rail and hitting their head, and concussions were not even a word in our
totally
personal dictionary, kind of.
Yeah. No, it's really important that this information, it comes out, and that we abide by, or we implement measures to really take care of the athletes, because it's, it's no joke. I know everybody has a different experience. Some people hit their head a million times and are fine, but in my life, it certainly hasn't been a joke. It's really, really affected me, and has really, truly changed the course of my life. So I'm an advocate for really taking as good care of your head as possible, and really, being diligent and taking care of yourself if you get hurt like that.
Mm-hmm. And when did that become a part of like your vocabulary on your side? Because I'm guessing like 15-year-old Kaya doing rollerblading might not have known what that was, but 25-year-old knew.
You know what? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I look back, and sometimes I think, my God, I was just plain stupid to not stop, to not stop. And I just continued I was always doing treatments on the side, doing scans, looking for something to help me. But then on the other side, I just continued to ski. And yeah, in all honesty, I wish the vocabulary was in me earlier. I wish also that the team had helped me earlier. I'll just straight up say that. It wasn't in my vocabulary until pretty late. And even when I was suffering from, basically constant headaches, it still wasn't a sure thing. No one was like, oh yeah, it's for sure a concussion. It was just so unknown. And I think that's also one of the big problems, or big, tricky factors about concussions, is like the range of symptoms is so wide. The effects is so great. Like the range is so great.
It's kind of blurry, the definition for people. Yeah. You talked about having constant headaches. Was that something that you had to deal with? Because you've said, I don't know if it was during the podcast or before, but that it's been now close to 10 years that you've had that. So while you were traveling and skiing and winning X Games, you had to deal with constant headaches?
I did, yeah. I don't know how I did it. Now I look back, like, I don't know, something that my sports psychologist I used to work with, this brilliant guy, Mike Gervais, and he once told, some things click, right? Like, and you just kind of, some things make sense. And he once told me, like, you can't think of two things at once. Like, that's the way the brain works. So if you're distracted, like, you're fully distracted, or so if you're in it, you're really in it. And I think that I was a good competitor, and I was a pretty good skier because I could really hone in on that focus. Like, I had it was all in. And that, I suppose, looking back, was a gift, but it was also my curse, because I was hurting like crazy, but I didn't know any other way. I still had goals. I was young and stupid, and I just pushed through. And so while I was skiing, my focus was so in it that I didn't pay attention to the headache. I didn't pay attention to it. I just basically skied, trained, and then would suffer at night, and then just do it all over. So when the Olympics happened, that I was in pretty rough shape, and that's when I really wanted to take a break and try to get better.
Was skiing a way to get out of the headaches? Like, while you were skiing, were you forgetting about it?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, exactly. It was like my escape,
When you're talking about being 100% into something, so when you're skiing, you're focused on that, so you forget about it.
Exactly. And so, it's a double-edged sword. I was doing it. It's ironic because I'm skiing to forget about my headache, but my skiing is likely making my headache much worse, So I was perpetuating it, and And,
Vicious circle.
vicious circle. Yeah. And the first 4 or 5 years, I don't know. It was crazy. I actually, looking back, don't know how I really did it. I just did it, and then the next 5 were pretty darn hard. So yeah.
Yeah, when you're deep into something, before you take a step back, it's hard to see it for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're so in it, and my identity was just so tied to being an athlete, to being a high level athlete, to being a competitor, that I didn't, at that time, I didn't have the awareness or the tools in myself to pull myself away. And I don't know, looking back, do I have regrets? Like, I don't know that I'm so grateful that I skied. I'm so grateful for the experiences I've had. And I don't know that I would change that, but yeah, maybe would have cut out a couple years before or something, because it's been a rough ride. I can't deny it. I don't have regrets. I'm I close my eyes and I could put myself in so many amazing memories and places all over the world that's a wonderful gift that I've been given. And now I just have to basically pay my dues, Now I'm in a place, I'm back in Montreal. I feel good. I'm happy here. But there's, I can't deny it's really derailed all of my plans, the plans I thought that I, wanted to go forward with after my ski career. I really wanted to focus on sports psychology. I was studying psychology, transferred to UCLA in California. I was going to do hopefully some work with Red Bull. There was some really great opportunities there. And I had a very clear goal. Like I mentioned, I worked with this really brilliant guy, a sports psychologist, and I just wanted to do what he did, and I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried. And like, you can believe that I'm a pretty determined person, but no matter how hard I tried, I just I couldn't, I just couldn't function normally on a daily. And so I wasn't able to keep up. So I've moved back, and I've really changed my life, and I'm doing something else that I really love. I'm doing art. And so, and I guess I say I'm paying my dues in the sense that I still deal with my headache every day. I still deal with this injury I've put on myself. You know?
Still have a reminder constantly.
Yeah. And so in that sense, I'm recovering.
And now it's time for another sponsor break. I'm stoked to have Dic Anns Restaurants as a sponsor once again this season. I've been a lifetime fan, so I'm always happy to share the good word. Dic Anns is a family-owned fast food restaurant chain with 12 locations in the Montreal region. They've been famous since 1954 for their great food, especially their flat hamburgers and their spicy sauce. Talking about their sauce, it's been available since last year in many Metro grocery stores all over Quebec. Dic Anns is my number one fast food spot, so if you come by Montreal, you gotta check it out. Support companies that support skiing. Support Dic Anns Restaurants. You talked a bit about your new business venture.
Yes.
Can we call it that?
Yes,
business
you can
venture?
call it that.
Is it a good term?
Yeah. It's, first and foremost, it's a passion, which is wonderful. And,
Tell me about it. Where does it come from?
I'll tell you.
You have your studio now in Montreal?
I do,
How did you get there?
So I've always been a really crafty person. I loved arts as a child. And so it's basically me either doing crafts or at that time rollerblading, earlier in my life. And those are my two main loves. And even while I skied and was traveling a ton, I always had either yarn with me and was crocheting hats or whatever, beads, just a little kit so I could constantly tune into that creative aspect, which I find so necessary, not even just enjoyable, but truly necessary, kind of to balance out the soul, because skiing was super intense. And it was really just a grounding thing for me to check into the arts. And so when I retired, I had more time on my hands. And like I said, I really haven't done much sports at all because of my recovery. And so I started doing more art again. And like I mentioned, I was studying, but eventually had to stop school. And so that was hard. That was really difficult for me to end up letting that go. But in the midst of all that, I was doing more and more art and really finding like so much peace and joy and calm in the arts. And so I just really, I don't know, it just took it all in and started going full on with it. And it just feels, it's like my therapy, it's healing me. And it's also, I've been so lucky in my life to have my passion as a job in skiing and rollerblading. And if I can make this art thing work for me, I would love it. Like I love what I'm doing on a daily basis. Everything is made with so much love, and it's wonderful. And I do hope that I'm certainly putting in a lot of work, and I do hope that it can become, a bit of a business.
Yeah, so it's called Studio de la Fleur.
That's right. I didn't even tell you.
Which means in English, the flower studio?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so, when I made the name, I was actually in California. So, like, the whole French thing was like,
Ooh,
it was
artsy.
like, what's the word, just a foreign.
Yeah.
And it was originally going to be Caille de la Fleur. And then I was like, no, let's switch that up. And so, anyway, now that I'm here in Montreal, it's not as original, if you will. But, it's the Studio of the Flower. And I love flowers. I love nature. I love natural things. I always have. And I preserve natural things, and I make beautiful things out of them. And I'm really a big believer in like creating beautiful spaces, because I think that really has an effect on our psyche.
And I think it's a really good timing right now with we're kind of more focused on waste these days, whether it's on the fashion side or on how we eat or everything. And what you do is kind of that. You create, how do you call it? Like decorations, jewelry,
I call it like floral decor, I guess, or like I call myself a floral designer. What I do is I take flowers and I preserve them. They're natural flowers. I preserve them in resin. And I basically make like, light sun catchers, like kind of stained glass style window hangers. And we'll go into more functional art one day, like lamps and stuff. But I guess the whole idea is like almost every evening I go out on a walk. Like I take my basket and I just like walk the alleys and stuff. Like I don't pick people's flowers from their gardens, but like in little alleyways, there's so many forgotten flowers, and I don't know, in the really, really, really rough days, and to be honest, there were many, I just like flowers. They just captivated me. You can look at a flower and see all the little petals and the hairs and this and that and the pollen, and like, it sounds so cheesy, but for me, that's like what I think saved me, really. And so, it's like I'm paying homage to the fleur, to la fleur. I'm picking this little flower that maybe no one will have ever seen, and I'm gonna give it its place.
The notorious flower stealer in Montreal.
That's
the flower
right.
thief.
Yeah, that's right. If you're missing flowers, don't come looking for them with me, because they're already in resin.
So let's not just stick to the negative. You're kind of I would say, as someone of the golden era generation,
The golden
that
days.
you're kind of the GOAT.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
I think if there was a podium of goats, female skier, like let's talk female skier. In my mind, the podium would be 3 different generations. There's Sarah, then there's you, and then I'd put Kelly Silderu.
That's very
that would
great
be the
compliment.
podium.
Thank you.
What do you think about that?
I mean, that's an honor, and I certainly agree for the other two. And I mean, that's a great compliment. And if I'm held in that kind of regard, then I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I mean it. Definitely, it's genuine, and it's so hard to compare in skiing where there's different disciplines. There's the competitions versus the movies. There's so many different stuff, and like Kelly is still skiing, so it's hard to say. Sarah, we know what happened, so then there's so much potential that is not there. But you've had one hell of a career. I was rewatching it kind of to stay updated before we talked, and before there was FIS, the whole thing to kind of classify you was the AFP, which was the Association of Free Skiing Professionals. And before there was countries and everything, it was kind of a way it was kind of a way to classify your rankings. And you basically were world champion year after year after year after year.
Yes.
So you basically won 10 X Games medal, 8 golds, 1 bronze, and a silver, if I'm right, something like that.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah.
One thing, I'll start off with, I'll have a real question aside from the compliments. I rewatched, and it's so crazy to look at this because we forget with the time that passes, but your first X Games medal was a silver in 2009?
Bronze, actually.
Bronze medal, first X Games slopestyle, but it's because it was the first women competition. Before 09, there wasn't.
That's right. It was the first X Games that we were in.
It's crazy to think that before 09, there weren't women's slopestyle.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, gosh, throughout my career, so much evolved in the sport, And even before, Sarah, Christy, Greta, Michelle Parker, and the girls who were kind of before me, my time, they also saw so much, so much progress but also how far we had yet to come, So, yeah, what an honor to be at, the first X Games for women, and then also the first in teeing in Norway. So I've had some great firsts at X Games.
I guess growing up, you must have seen Sarah as a pioneer and as an idol and everything. How do you look back at yourself thinking that you also were that kind of model for the girls that are pro right now?
I mean, it's always kind of, I don't know if other people feel this way, but I find it's always, I think Sarah, I look at Sarah, she was just a legend. A complete legend, I don't know, I have no other words than just a legend. But
it's I've never met her, and as much as time passes, kids these days are maybe not as much aware of her. I've talked to a couple people about JP, which is kind of the similar situation. He's a legend, and he's not with us anymore. Do you mind telling us a bit about her, or maybe the influence she had? Because the few I know, I remember shots of her early 2000s throwing 1080s. And you look back at that and you're like, holy shit, she was nuts in terms of skills, and when you talk about mindset, just being all in.
Yeah, Sarah was really special. My gosh, she was so badass, so brave, and not completely fearless, just calculated, but had a lot of oomph, and it was amazing to watch her. Amazing. And if you'd got to know her, you'd also see she was really, really kind person, and she really exuded this wonderful energy. And I think that's what anybody who ever met Sarah, I think, knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so if I'm ever kind of put in the same category as Sarah, I don't think that I don't know if I see that, but I really appreciate the compliment. But she was just truly one of a kind. And she certainly was somebody that I looked up to, throughout my ski career. And I certainly remember the first time I met her and skied with her, and have many great memories. The whole energy, just wonderful energy. But then in comp mode, you could just see her, she just knew how to get shit done. And she was a fireball, so really, really cool to see that contrasting kind of parts of her. Yeah,
I think I see a lot of similarities as someone who never met any of both, but between JP and Sarah, where they were both great athletes, but as much as they were, every time someone mentions them, it's more oh my God, they were so kind.
Yeah, the heart, the heart. You're right. And I think JP had a very similar kind of energy, just good, those people that you just, if you know, mm-hmm. and you probably know, you can either feel bad vibes with somebody, or you can just feel really good. And those guys were not just good vibes, but just so wholesome. If they smiled, you smiled. There was no other option,
mm-hmm.
And yeah, just completely infectious characters. And I think that's, sure, they were amazing skiers, but there's a lot of amazing skiers that have come and gone, but those two are complete legends, and not only for their skiing abilities,
I think Sarah, from what I know, had a lot to do with pushing the sport in terms of kicking doors and saying, hey, we deserve our place, like to have a half pipe event. She was a big part into having the sport in the Olympics. How was it the first X Games, knowing in hindsight that I never thought about it watching it, but on your side, you probably had in mind that, hey, ESPN is doing this for the first time. We need to show them like that. Did you have that in mind or not at all?
You know, looking back, I don't think so. Like when you're at X Games, like it's, for me, it was always a dream to be there, you know? And so, and I know all the subsequent years, even when, you know, I came back year after year, like it was always like that same like buzz, you know. X Games is like no other event. It's really like the energy there is just insane. All the athletes are just so, like, the energy is good, so people are happy, having fun, but like it's also so focused and it's so intense. And at least personally, like when I'm at X, like I'm in my own world. Like I'm not really thinking about like the event organizers or anything. Like I'm just like, I'm here, what do I need to do? You know, and how do I get it done? And so, I mean, there was a lot of pressure that first X Games, but I can't say it came from me thinking about it being the first X. It was just like, I'm finally at X Games. I've thought about this my whole life, because back in the day I wanted to do it as a rollerblader. Yeah. And like, you know, how do I make this happen? So yeah, I wasn't nerve-wracking because of that. It just was because it was X Games, you know.
And now it's time for another sponsor break. I'm stoked to have Planks Clothing as a sponsor again this year. I love the brand. Everything they make is top quality and super stylish. Planks has just launched their new No Skiing on Mars capsule collection. The No Skiing on Mars collection is a collaboration between Protect Our Winters UK, also known as POW, and Planks Clothing. With the sales of this limited collection made from recycled fabrics, they aim to raise over 5,000 euros. This donation will help fund POW's carbon literacy program, which is already changing individual and businesses' carbon consumption for the better. Mars may be the next frontier for human settlement, but it sucks as a ski destination. Our Earth is amazing and we must help protect it. No Skiing on Mars is available to shop now at planksclothing.com. Support companies that support skiing. Support Planks Clothing. But how was it for you? I guess, as you said, it was your dream to get in by rollerblading, and then you get in by skiing, and we can go into details about that, but you had already made a name for yourself for 3 years at that point. You've had injuries, but you were already a known name. Like, you weren't a rookie per se. If slopestyle was already in the X Games, what I mean is that you probably would have went like 2 years before that. You weren't new at that point. So there was already that pressure of like, people knew that you were one of the top skiers in the world.
Yeah. I think that pressure came early on, you know, is that I kind of like, for whatever reason, there was like some hype, you know, about early on in my career, just maybe because I was young and kind of out of nowhere. And so there was that pressure, but I think ultimately like the greatest pressure was always from myself, you know. I think that's pretty common theme between like us athletes. It's just like, and good and bad, you know, and it goes both ways. Like it's, because it's never enough, it's never good enough, you know, but that's how you push yourself to be, you know, to greatness, if you will, quote unquote greatness. So I always had extremely high expectations of myself. So the pressure was always greatest from within.
Yeah, well, I think people had great expectations, and maybe I'm talking for myself, is that we knew slopestyle is, even though it's simple, but it's still strategic, and there's jumps and there's rails. And I think you were higher level in jumps than other girls, but you were 5 higher levels in terms of rails.
I think the rollerblading in my past really, I think it just helped. It helped me progress on rails, on skis, quite a bit, or not even progress. It just, a lot of it just transferred, you know. So once I figured out, you know, the equipment, and made the transition to, just adjusted transitions, and a lot of it translated so well. So yeah, you're right that I had a pretty good rail game in the start.
Yeah, and the rail game is a lot about, it's not necessarily skills, but it's about being willing to take the risk of trying a certain trick. Like, yes. I've noticed a lot of people who are like mid-tier, like they're not on your level, but who, when they were teens, had a hard time trying a new trick, and when they get into their 20s and are I don't know, they have a different perspective, and all of a sudden they do a switch 4 on. And it's like they don't overthink it, they just do it, you know? And I think maybe that's something, well, you've probably thought about it, but rollerblading, just landing switch on rollerblades, you have to have so much balance because you can whip out on your face, and then you get on skis and it's so much easier. So you get into, the mindset must have helped so much there with the rail game.
The number one thing for rails is like the commitment to the trick. Like, because if you go up and you hesitate, that's where really things go wrong. Your skis will get caught in the rail, whatever. You're not gonna, you get tripped up, and that's when things can really hurt. So you have to, and I'd say it's the same thing going off a jump. You can't just like go off and be like, oh, am I gonna like do a 3 or 5? You gotta set the trick and trust it and hold it. And it's same like on rails. And I think that's for sure, rollerblading set me up because like I'd had so much experience with rails, all sorts of rails, huge drop rails with 30-40 foot drops on the other side, that rails didn't intimidate me as much, I think, as other people. I just had so much experience with them. So I just, I was committed. I committed and I did some crazy tricks.
Yeah, you're right. It's a big thing of, if you're going to throw a 3 or a 5, don't do a 450.
Exactly. Like you better know what you're doing, and you commit. Like I just know if you hesitate on takeoff, it's gonna work you. Mm-hmm. You gotta be in control. And I think that's where a lot of beginners maybe go wrong, is like that. You really got to take the leap.
Yeah.
The leap.
I've seen so much people do that, where like let's say there's a box and they're used to going 50-50, and then it's the try where they go sideways. But they don't go 90 degrees, they go 45 and they just whip out.
I know, man. I know. There's looking back, there's some hard bails you can take in those parks. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen so many people who want to go into rails and have that first bail, and they're like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to carving.
Well, because that's it. When you're looking at somebody who knows how to do it, it looks easy, smooth, it just looks like a nice little slide. But yeah, especially if you're trying with skis that have edges, good luck. That's not fun.
Yeah. You talked about commitment. Another part for me, watching a lot of street is a great example of commitment, because if you're hitting a closeout or anything, it's like it's not a jump where you speed test. It's like the first try, you need to act as if it was like, there's no try.
Yeah. There's no, half step. There's all in. There's all in. That's all it is. Yeah. And if it's not all in, then you're probably going to get pretty worked, So street is a huge commitment. So, or like, if you have a 120-foot kicker, like there's no halfway. You're not going to just do 60 and then 70. You got to make it to 120, right? Or else you're going to blow up, literally.
You got to have someone guinea pig. Yeah, I always have a hard time guinea pigging it.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually I was like, Jossie was my, not guinea pig, but like at, big courses like X Games. I usually find someone, a bit smaller. So Joss was like, yo, can I follow you in? And that was the trick. I think early on in my career, I might have been cool with it. But once I did my first knee, I was never a guinea again.
Yeah, that it's not worth it.
It's so not worth it. I could be the least cool person, but I will not guinea.
Yeah, it's crazy how much like there's science and engineering going into the jumps and into the skis themselves. But then to test it, it's really like YOLO to the max, where it's, hey, let's go straight down and see where we go. It's
incredible. It's fascinating. In fact, I actually think about this often, because I do, love sports psychology. So I love like thinking about the mentality, and it always fascinates me how people, you can like, you learn this speed sense, you learn to know, oh, I'm going too fast or too slow. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not really familiar with the jump, you just have this sense. Like, it's incredible how you develop that, you know?
I have a lot of people I know who are good at jumping, not pros, but I never was at that level, and it always like freaked me out. I was the guy who needed to know the exact speed to be good. And then I'd see people just carving on, doing a couple speed check and doing first hit cork 7. And I was always like, there's a sixth sense in that, as you were saying, the speed sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this sense like, yeah, I mean, when you get good enough at it, it's like, you know whether to do a tiny carve, a tiny speed check, even like last second, you know, you do a bit of the pizza or whatever it's called to slow down. Like it's amazing how the body can kind of figure that out, and your brain just understands, even if you don't know the specific jump. It's really, I can't explain it, but it's fascinating.
But did you ever feel that at some point? Or
Sure, I felt it. Yeah. I would say, among my peers, among all the other pro skiers, like I was never going to be the guinea. Like I wouldn't say that I had the best skills at that, but certainly I felt quite confident in my speed sense. Yeah, for sure.
Because a thing that we notice a lot, or that I notice at least, is in X Games, the course is super tight. And sometimes if you overshoot or undershoot a bit the jump, then your speed is kind of fucked. And you got to judge, am I still going for the next one or just swerving off? And that always seems like such a hard bet, because you probably can try and get your trick done, but it's like if you're trying a 1080 or something and you're going to have less speed, it's like it's a lot of risk and reward assessment in a fraction of a second.
In a fraction of a second, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. The X Games courses, like, they're always amazing. Like those Stone Park Technologies, those are the guys who build those courses. Like, they do a great job. And at least when I was skiing, like, we were always just super happy when it was Snow Park Technologies building the course, wherever it was. Anyway, so those guys did a great job. And when a good job is done, like, the course flows really, really well, which means, like, you don't have to, like, whatever. It means that things line up, the speed is right, the transitions make sense. But for sure, it was a very tight course. So that means that everything basically had to be pretty perfect. If you travel left or right, you better be like, as soon as you land, you have to, in that split second, even right before you land, like, you're setting up into the next jump. So if you bobble on your landing or whatever, like, that's where things get kind of tricky, because you cannot hesitate. If you hesitate between those jumps, it's not a good thing. So it's either you take the jump or you don't. There's no like, ooh. So yeah, it's those courses leave very little room for error, and so yeah, that's why sometimes you won't see a lot of people complete the course, because it's quite tricky. But
did you ever have that in a run where you knew the speed was screwed, but you were just like, okay, fuck it, I'm still sending it?
Yeah, only once, maybe a few times, but the worst one was at the Olympics for me, where Olympics is, it's a whole other story, but it was a really rough time. I just wasn't in good shape. Let's just say it. I was sick. I had a bad knee injury, and yeah, like, but I'd waited for the Olympics for forever, and it was bad. I just was not in good shape. And in my second run, it was of qualifiers. It was like all or nothing, and I landed, and then I must have landed like in a rut or something, because it like made me do a 180 as I landed. And so I lost speed, but I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to like, I was going to the second jump. Like, there's no way I had enough speed, but it was like, I'm at the Olympics. This is my second of 2 runs. Like, I'm not going to make qualifiers. Like, I gotta try. And like, of course, I'm like 10 feet short. I blow the F up. Like, my shit's all over the place. But at least I tried, Why didn't I say I tried? So yeah, it happens. But once you do that a few times early in your career, you learn not to hit a jump unless you're pretty sure you got the speed right,
Is it possible that like the boys at the Olympics had like the best day ever in terms of conditions, but you girls were like had like clouds? And is it possible? It's possible.
To be honest, I really don't remember all that much from the Olympics. It wasn't great conditions, but I don't like to say too much about the Olympics, because I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for myself.
We all know you're not.
Thank you.
You were dominating for 4 years, and it's not as if you're not the only one who had trouble with the Olympics. Like, and it's not to say that you didn't have it. It's more that people are aware that it's a fucking struggle. Like, the whole process for the U.S. team, of all of them getting into it, like just Sochi, there's you that are notorious for having had a hard time with a knee injury, but there's also Wallish, who was the favorite
That's
and then
right.
blew his knee the summer before.
And Simon too, I
And
think.
Simon Dumont, who didn't qualify or
Yeah,
tore
because
his
of a knee
knee.
injury,
And
yeah.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of people
man.
in that specific year who, like, I guess it was kind of a test run because it was the first one, and then there was a lot of casualty of people falling to that pressure and that whole hype. And you and Simon and Wallish are three good examples because you were all like kings and queens of, like, you were top tier athletes, like winning everything, and then it's like all eyes on you, as if, you know, the Olympics are not new. It's always that thing of like, hey, it's once every 4 year. Tough luck if you.
It certainly feels like it's the only thing that exists, you know, and you're there and you're building up to it. And like, I'd always been super focused on X Games, and I'm so thrilled to have competed in all those X Games. But yeah, you know, Olympics came around. It was like nothing else mattered. Like, it was just all in. And I think that, you know, as an athlete going to the Olympics, you do need to be all in. You know, you need to be super dedicated to your training. But yeah, it's unfortunate that. Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate that I put so much weight on it. That took me a long time to realize that it wasn't the defining moment of my career, you know, that didn't erase all my previous success. But yeah, it was certainly a lot of pressure and a lot of feeling the effects of the pressure later. I don't know how to exactly say it, but yeah, a lot of disappointment a huge disappointment. I mean, yeah.
But it's crazy to think of that span. Basically, you were pro for like, what, 8 years at that point? You had won everything back to back to back. Like, you had nothing to prove to anyone but yourself. Or maybe there's always that attractions of like the gold medal with like to become mainstream and get that to that next level of money or fame. I don't know if that was the case at all. But yeah, you blow your knee 6 months before. Anyone in skiing knows that the math doesn't add up.
Yeah.
You come back, you win X Games.
I know. It's crazy.
So it's like, okay, well, she just did the impossible. She won it like 5 months after. But then, yeah, it's
I think that's, and the X Games was like really, really insane and cool that I did that. But I think that really kind of, I was like, wow, okay, I'm back. Like, I got this, you know? And so that, like, and then all eyes, like, when, you know, it was like, okay, Kai's back, you know, she's gonna win it. And so, yeah, the pressure was there for sure.
Kind of didn't help with the pressure because then it's as if the pressure was off because you had an injury.
Exactly,
and
then I came back. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the nature, I suppose. If you're in, you know, one of the top positions in the sport, then you have to carry that.
What was the situation going into it? Because for the United States, say, they have to qualify for their team, like, and they only know 2 weeks in advance.
I know.
Like, I think for you knew you were good for the team as long as you could ski. How much pressure did you, like, was there a thought for you of saying like, oh, I'll take the season off and think about it? I guess not, since you
mean before?
Yeah, during the whole fall. Was there thinking of like...
No. I mean, at that point, like, I mean, it was crazy. So I was training in Mount Hood in the summer with the team, and I was struggling quite a bit. I was quite fatigued. And basically, my body, like, I blew my knee. I just did, in Mount Hood. And I mean, and from that day on, like, that was literally 6 months to the day before the Olympics. So luckily I had secured my Olympic spot, or I thought I had secured. And then I'll tell you about a story in a second. But
it seems so complicated.
It is complicated. It is complicated. And every cycle they change things. And so I don't know how things stand now, but the way Team Canada did is if you had an exceptional season in the year before the Olympics, then, you know, depending on which events, then you could kind of pre-qualify. And so I had pre-qualified, luckily, in 2013 because I had won world champs in Norway. And so I knew I had a spot. And so I was lucky in that sense that, like, when I blew my knee in early fall, like, I didn't have to worry about doing events before the Olympics. And so, but there was never, some rest time. It was like, I blew my knee. I lived in LA at the time, but I ended up moving up to Vancouver to train full time with this guy, Damon Maroney, kind of through Red Bull. So in B210, this crew that supported me. Anyway, so I was really just living up there kind of on my own. Didn't really, I was very lonely. It was really a weird situation, but I just trained my ass off. And then Team Canada called and was like, oh, you actually have to go and get a top 5 or top 8 at a World Cup. So they called me, it was like 2 days before, and all the training had already happened, and I showed up. Luckily, I knew the guy, Jeremy Cooper, who like took me up in a cat at midnight so I could see the course. So the course I was competing on the next day, I had to figure out my run in like 2 runs. It was very stressful, but I don't know, I got third or 4th. So I got my spot, but that was unexpected. I wasn't supposed to have to compete in the fall, but I ended up having to, and I secured it. So I was like,
it's crazy coming from people who are supposed to be like your team and your nation, who kind of,
well,
as
I
much
guess
as you have to earn your spot, you were still like the most dominant skier in the world. So it's like you would guess that they would kind of make it easy for you rather than like,
I guess. Well, I think they did make, like, the fact that I was pre-qualified was really wonderful, and the whole me having to compete last minute was really a surprise. I think they didn't expect it, and I wasn't ideal for sure. I was in Colorado, and we ended up driving 10 hours to Utah to do this. It was like really an acute stress, but I think their system of pre-qualification was actually really cool, because looking at what the Americans have to go through is like, it's unreal. Like it's just a whole different system. And so if it works for them, it works. But that was great. And then what happened in the end was really just kind of, I think, bad luck, if you will, like, because, not to get like too in depth and all this boring stuff, but because slopestyle, half pipe, ski cross is kind of alpine and freestyle. Moguls, we're all under the same umbrella, and so we all have to fight. We're not just fighting for spots within our team, but we're fighting for spots within the whole team. And so what happened, there was some drama between ski cross. They were not happy because I was pre-qualified, and so that there was this whole stink. So I was just like, cool, let me show up. I did it, took my spot, which was mine already, and then unfortunately didn't go so well, but yeah.
You still earned it.
Yeah, I earned it, and
That's where you get into the politics of it.
Exactly, politics, yeah.
You're far from the old days of like a US Open type event, free skiing, etc., when you're dealing with like the Canadian Association of Mogul Skiing and like shit like that.
There's good and bad sides about everything, and Team Canada and being part of the team and being part of an organization like that was wonderful and very supportive. But yeah, it's also nice. It was also nice, you mentioned the quote golden years or whatever, it was just nice when we were all just a crew, friends, meeting up, traveling together. It wasn't this whole like bureaucracy and political stuff. It was just like, oh, you're Spanish, Australian, you American, great, like we're going to Switzerland to hit this jump, It wasn't like, let me call my team, and oh, there's the Germans and there's the Swiss. It's just like, oh my God, let's just all hang, That's the spirit of freestyle, isn't it? It's all about is being free. It's the creative. It shouldn't be structured, So I understand the OGs, having a bit of a resistance towards the FIS program.
I had a general question for you.
Sure.
In terms of, we could look at every slopestyle run, and I guess we'd have something interesting to say. We could do that for a couple ones just to do the exercise. But as ski fans, as people on news coolers and all that stuff that really knew what was up, it was not even a question to see if you were going to win. In our minds, it was like, if she lands her run, she wins, because we knew that you were the best. How was it for you on your side? Because we talked a bit about the level that was at, and that just factually you were at a higher level. While girls were starting to do tricks on rails, you were doing, we talked a bit about it before the podcast, you were doing a switch 450 on, which is still like big level trick. How was it on your side going into the start gate? Like, were you, I guess you were aware that you were on a higher level, but what was your mentality going in? did you know that it was like, if I land, I should be good?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, sometimes at least, for sure. Like I can't say that I thought I was going to win every single time, but I certainly, and I think most athletes who have been successful, like I can't speak for anyone else. I'll say for myself, like I don't think you can win, at least on a consistent basis, and kind of dominate or do have success if you don't really truly believe that you can, that not that you deserve it, but that you have it in you, know. I don't think you'll find people who are just like, oh, I won, like what a fluke. Like maybe that'll happen once or twice, but like if you're consistent, then you have to believe it. I had to believe it. So yeah, I did feel good about myself. I did always craft a run that I thought if I landed would keep me in one of the top positions.
And what was your strategy going into runs in terms of knowing what the level was in terms of rails and jumps, but also knowing that sometimes rails are kind of less rewarded than jumps? And let's say there's this run that I was talking about in teen where you start off with a switch disaster 450 on, and it's like there's risk and reward where if you get it, then it's a super banger trick, but are you is it worth it to do it? Do you need, what was your vision for those type of tricks?
That's interesting. I don't know.
Am I going too deep into it?
No, I mean, no, because for sure there's a whole lot of calculations, I guess, if you will, when you're crafting your run, I'm sure many people have different strategies. I usually looked at what others were doing, but I tried not to look too much, I think that's where you can get really caught up and you can actually, harm yourself and the mental aspect just because you're overthinking what everyone else is doing, and it really shouldn't matter all that much. But just to kind of place myself, okay, what kind of tricks do I need to lay down in order to, snag a podium position? And so there was that calculation. And then it was like, and then, I don't know, the whole, whether it's first feature or last feature, I don't know. I think I actually prefer to get it over with in the beginning, because once you land that banger trick, it's just like the confidence that it sets you up with into that second feature. And it's all about building momentum and then keeping that momentum, and not losing it if you bobble too, right? You need to keep your composure. So I think having a really strong first or second trick, can really I don't know, snap you even further into it and focus you. So yeah, no, it was it's always really, I mean, for me, I was always really I don't know if I was nervous, but just, I was nervous. It was so intense. It was so intense. And so whether it was a 450 or anything else, I was already out of my mind, just so in it. And so just good to get it done and good to have a banger into the next jumps.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen that a lot where, let's say I watch X Games, and if someone has a kind of a bubble on the first rail, they might still land it, but it's not perfect. You can see it affects the rest of the run. Then they bobble on the jump, and you see that it fucks up everything for the rest. And it affects on the negative side, but you're right, also on the positive side, where if it goes well, it kind of builds up the run, and then
exactly
you see the whole mental aspect.
Exactly. I mean, sure, what we do is physical. There's no doubt. You need strength, and you need a lot of great physical attributes. Or strong, but there's no doubt a massive component is mental. I've known a lot of really great, really good skiers who could never land a run, and that's not because they weren't good skiers. That's just because the mental aspect wasn't, tuned up for the competition, whatever. And so sure, you need the skills, but you also need, you need the mindset, and you need to craft that and hone that. And so yeah, it's because it's a big mind fuck if you bobble on a rail, you know that the judges have seen it, you've made a mistake, and so, especially on a course like X Games, that, that thought cannot stay with you any longer than what just happened, and then you need to move on. And if you can't do that, then it's likely going to affect you throughout the whole run. So I think it's a major skill to be able to be like, cool, okay, that's done, it's done. Like, what's next? Focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, and as we were saying, the course is so tight that, let's say you're doing a trick on a rail right before the jump, and your plan is to land switch and go ahead switch, but then you muff your trick and you land forward, and it's like
it'll compromise the whole run. Yeah, and so you need to really be able to just like reset right then and there, which is fast. It's probably not even 1 second.
Did you used to think about like a B run? Let's say if I muff this trick, okay, what am I going into? Or it was more in the moment?
Yeah, no, there was no in the moment so much. Usually I knew pretty early on, in the week or however many days we had to train, I knew what I was going to be doing. And I didn't really have an A or an B. It was just usually like
all in,
yeah. Not all in, no, necessarily in the sense that like I was just like throwing all my hardest tricks like and just going like wild. It was calculated, I did a run that I think would place me well, know, and so yeah, but it was, I guess, my A run. Yeah.
You talked a bit about knowing people that are really good skiers but don't, or like are victim to the stress. When you ski a park a whole day, you can do 30 runs and you have your flow, and at X Games it's like, I guess you have your practice in the morning and then it's like, see you in 2 hours for the finals.
Yeah, it's X Games is like, if we're gonna look at events that have like that do it right, quote unquote right, like where athletes are stoked and they feel good and taken care of, like I'd put X Games at the top of that list. Like things are really catered to the athletes, and it's sure there's TV networks and all that stuff involved, sponsors, but like it seems like it's focused around us. So they really try to time practices where you'll have a practice in the afternoon, you'll have one in the morning the next day, just to make sure that athletes have skied and snowboarded in their own, all the time slots, just so okay, in the morning, like speed's a lot faster, and then in the afternoon, the sun's hitting, whatever. So you get an idea, but for sure, there's many FIS events that are just absolutely terrifying. You have like 2 practice runs all week, and then you train in like 8 in the morning. They call you at 3 p.m. because that's the time slot girls get, and you just gotta, you just gotta basically cross your fingers, and hope that the conditions are similar. Like, yeah, and that's the terrifying aspect, and I think that's an aspect that really needs to change. Is we need more practice, we need more consistency, but. That's kind of another story. More importance
put on skiers' health.
On skiers' health, yeah. I mean, I haven't been to Startgate in a few years now, but I was not a happy camper when I was up there, and I was being told to drop in, with 40 mile an hour winds. I mean, it's terrifying.
Did you notice, because you kind of alluded to a separation, did you really notice a difference between the FIS events and the other types?
1,000%.
Yeah.
But no, 1,000%. Like Dew Tour was great, X Games was rad. FIS is tricky just because, at least in my experience, it's just not. It doesn't seem as centered around the athletes. It doesn't feel like we are the main focus. We are the main focus in terms of like, we're bringing in the viewers, we're the show, but. My experience, it's made clear that we are the show, and good weather, bad weather, tornado weather, rain, shine, whatever, like they're dropping you because they're making you drop into the course because the TV time slot is then. And that's, in my opinion, unacceptable and always was unacceptable. And I was lucky in my position that like I was older by then. By the time I was already competing in FIS events, I was older, more experienced, had already had several injuries, big ones, that when they were saying like, yeah, you gotta go now, I had the confidence to say no. Like I'm waiting for this gust to leave, or whatever. Like this could be, this could mean my knees blowing, or my knees blowing out, or my whole body. Like it's just, they're not. Sometimes you had the sense they weren't necessarily looking out for you. You had to really look out. And I was saying, I was older, so I had the confidence to say, I don't feel good about this, or I'm not even going to compete, you know. But as a younger kid, like putting myself in those shoes, I would have done anything. And you'd see that, the young girls, you know, we can do it, we got it. And that's like, I mean, I don't want to like ramble on about this, but that kind of brings up this whole culture of like, we can do it, girls can do it, you know, and having to feel like they have to prove it, because there's actually just a lot of negativity towards, you know, the progression or lack of progression or whatever you want to name it in women's skiing, you know. So unfortunately we have that to contend with too, you know. And so
it's weird thinking about FIS when you say, like, my first guess when you talk about wind gusts is that they have no clue.
Yeah.
And that you only think about free skiing, but then if I think of wind gusts, it's the same for a ski racer. Let's say he's at the start gate, he'll be like, wait 5 seconds, or same thing for a mogul skier. So I'm like, why are they clueless? Because it's something that every type of skier can relate to, right?
Unfortunately, I just don't know if these people are, I mean, I don't know that they're ex-athletes, you know, they're in managerial positions. They're basically like, I don't know. I don't know too much about the FIS organization, to be honest. I've competed in several events, but you know, and in summary, they weren't my favorite, and I didn't necessarily feel very well taken care of. I preferred other events, and that's all. So.
You haven't had many appearances in movies, but the few ones that you've had were like legendary, I'd say, where people still remember it.
Thanks.
How much of a good memory do you have of those? Like, let's say I remember one right now, which was with Level 1, I think, I Trip here.
Yeah.
Where you filmed in Quebec with Phil and JF. And you had a not a full segment, but you had a segment in that. What's your memories of filming street, or filming in general, but on that case it was street?
Yeah, I mean, filming, like, that's a whole, like, filming a segment is a whole other kind of venture. You know, it's really, really different than being a competitive athlete. And there are many athletes who do both, you know. Maybe now less so, because it's really now like so intense in the competing world. But yeah, like there's skiers who compete, so you're on the comp tour, you're all over the place, you're basically just traveling from one competition to the next. And then there's many who film segments, right? And so I was mainly a competitor, but you know, when Level 1, I think I was with Skull Candy then, and those guys helped me get in touch with Level 1, and it had been a dream, you know, to work with those guys. And so when I had that opportunity, Orage and Skull Candy, I think. But yeah, no, you're right. And Felix Rioux, who is a photographer here from Montreal, he helped me out a lot. So I was lucky to get in with those guys, and that was really, I mean, that was a huge accomplishment for me, just to even be, not even to be featured, but just to have that opportunity, you know, because not many women had that. And it was really cool. It was really an honor, and it was really an interesting experience, because it's really, really different than competing. So obviously I was a lot more familiar with competition, and street is it's a whole other vibe, whole other level. It's a whole lot of work, a lot more work than it looks, you know, because you have to basically build the entire feature. Often you're getting kicked out, you know, you need like winches and generators and like God knows why. It's really, it's a lot of work, bungees. Yeah, like it's a lot of work, but it's really rewarding, and it's a lot of fun because you're usually with friends, you know. We had a great crew. So for me, it was a wonderful experience. It was a lot of work. And so it was really cool to see myself in the film. I think the work paid off.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the core thing in skateboarding and maybe skiing also is that you have someone who's really good in competition, and a way to prove himself, like in a more core way, maybe. Is like, I'll do a segment for a movie. And I don't think that you had anything to prove, and no one thought that, but it's still cool to see like that you were more than able to film street on your own. Like there's that thing with a lot of guys where someone would only do slopestyle comps, and then it's like, oh, could he do street? But on your side, it was like, yeah, I can do it. And you posted, I think it's a photo on Instagram of it's a big down rail, a red rail.
Yeah.
With a drop on the side.
Yeah.
that you did with level 1 on that trip, but
Yes.
that you also did
On rollerblades.
on rollerblades.
Back in the day, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the only rail I've ever done on both.
And like that rail as a drop on the side, but when it's the winter, I guess it's less intense because you have the powder to land on. But doing that on rollerblades, I guess at the top of that rail, you're like 30-foot high,
At least,
something like that.
Yeah, you know, and speaking of commitment, right? We mentioned that earlier. Like, there's no like, oh, let me just half-ass it. No, it's like you commit, or you're done. So I committed, and yeah, filming those segments, that was pretty hardcore.
I never saw that rail before. I knew it was in the area, and it's right near a highway.
That's
and
right.
I came past it this year, and I was like, oh shit, this is the rail.
So the side that you see from the highway is the lower side.
Yeah.
That's the side I did on skis, but the side on the other side is like, it's really high. I'm lucky. It's fall.
Like a city building, or for water, or it looks like a municipal thing, and basically the roof is a rail.
Yeah, it's a slanted roof with like two massive rails. Yeah.
How did that? Do you remember how you came to hit that rail? Was it you saying, "Hey, I hid that on rollerblades back in the days"?
I think so. Yeah, I think like I enjoyed that rail on rollerblades, and I knew it was in the area, and we were filming here. And Montreal and Quebec have some really great spots. We're kind of known to have that. So yeah, I was lucky to know it from rollerblading, and we just went back.
It's crazy. I remember Phil did like a lip on, like nose press slip on. Like those shots were sick.
Phil is so impressive. It's insane.
How was it doing a trip? Because on one aspect, there's level 1, as you said, having the opportunity with that crew that is one of the best to ever do it. But then there's also going with Phil and JF, who I'm guessing you knew already and you were friends with, but they are two of the best to ever do it also.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, to be paired up with those guys, and Felix on the trip as well, taking photographs, was like, it was awesome. Like it's always such an honor to watch great athletes do what they do, and Phil and JF are no exceptions for sure. Like those guys are both so creative, and that's also like just a side point about street. That's like a really cool aspect of it, is like each athlete will bring a totally different flavor, and Phil and JF really had unique perspectives, I think. And so yeah, it was really cool to see the creative stuff that they came up with, and obviously extremely skilled. So I mean, like, I think you get better, or at least I got better when I was with better athletes, with
Definitely.
people who were super badass. So yeah, it was really an honor, and yeah, it was, what can I say? Like, it was just, I don't even know how I ended up in that same category, but I'm lucky that I was, yeah.
On my side, as a filmer, I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's always that where sometimes it just happens that at a shoot you're with someone and you notice something special. Like on my side, one thing I have in mind is I was in Breck filming with some Quebec boys like Belmar, Vincent Gagne when they were younger, and it's in freeway in the big jumps, and I'm just on the coping filming them pass by, and on the same day Dane Tudor was trying switch triples.
Oh, wow.
And I remember just being like, holy fuck.
Dude, I was there then too.
Oh,
that's
shit.
crazy.
Yeah, those
funny.
type of things where like Phil had some shot that year. I don't know if you were there at the same time, but there's these barracks in Quebec, like all army barracks.
Okay.
Where they did a wall ride at night.
Oh, yeah, in Quebec City?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where he does that, like, nose press.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that was so sick, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, Phil was just unreal. I mean, JF, both of them, but watching Phil's style and just his creativity, like, just so diverse, so unique. Dude, I still don't understand.
Like a lip 180 onto a wall ride is like young Phil.
With no a tiny ass landing. Yeah. I know, unreal. Phil will always, in my eyes, be one of the best, seriously.
Like,
so,
were you there that night?
I was there, yeah. I was there. Yeah.
So that's a cool thing with Urban, where I guess they helped you with your shot on the rail to drop.
Yeah.
You get your shot, and then it's like really a team sport at that point.
Yeah, Yeah, like you're helping each other out, right? We're all building features together, and even if I was, I wasn't taking part of one feature, I was helping, and vice versa. Those guys didn't hit the rail, but they helped me with that. So yeah, it's truly a team effort.
It's really, you don't see that in competitions. Like,
no.
We're gonna spend a whole day shoveling for your shot.
That's right.
Not because they're saints, but just like that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. Yeah, you're there to win. You're there to compete for yourself. So yeah, it's certainly not the same vibe. It's more chill. Like there's pressure. You want to get good shots. Like, and so it's serious. It's intense, but it's not that same like madness. Drop gate madness.
We talked a bit that you're kind of moved on from skiing. As much as you loved it, you're onto other stuff. And I thought something really cool would be to look at some of your old runs, to not just use our memories and talk about fake stuff, but really like look back at it and like have your impressions on it.
Yeah, so feel it all over.
Good thing that X Games has some stuff on YouTube. So right now we're looking at your 2010 gold run. So I guess that would be your first X Games gold.
Oh my. In Aspen?
Yeah. So... Oh, that's
teen.
Let me see. I think I have Aspen. 2012.
Oh man, those were some good days when we had 2 X Games. And
I don't think Aspen is there, but teen.
That's cool. Teen was fun.
Teen always had a longer course than Aspen, it seemed.
Much longer. The slope is just...
You start off with 2 on, 2 out, really stomped.
Yeah,
clean.
I'm flowing. I'm feeling good into that cab 3. I love skiing switch. I love just riding switch to switch to switch.
You were a right side spinner, right?
Yeah, I was a right side spinner. Oh man, I think I did a cork 7 here. Oh my god.
Cork 7?
I subsequently lost that trick. I don't really know what happened to it.
You didn't do it often, right?
Not much, because I ended up hurting my knees on all forward landing tricks. I think that's another reason why I stuck so much to the big cab 7.
Yeah.
Cab 5. Excuse me, we're not at the bottom yet.
And then a rail to end it off, which was not usual.
That was fun because they had rails kind of in the middle of the runs. Usually it's either at the beginning or the end. The money booter with the big cab 7, clean landing. I must have been very satisfied at that moment. It just feels good.
And then you just go off straight off. That's weird. They're like, hey, come back. We need to show you your score.
I don't know. Sometimes you're just so in the zone.
Yeah.
You're like,
You're like, right,
there's me.
I need to go back.
Like, whoops, okay, I'm coming, guys. Yeah, you're just so in the zone. You just kind of sometimes forget what you need to be doing.
What are your memories looking back at teen? Because this event doesn't exist anymore. But I guess it was cool for people focused on competition like you were, where you had not just 1 X Games, but 2. So it's always cool. And to me, it seems a bit like I'm a tennis fan. So, they don't have 1 big tournament every year. They have 4.
Yeah.
Then you have multiple occasions of showcasing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I loved going to France to compete at X Games. And like we were talking about earlier, like X Games is in my opinion, always did events right. Like really courses well built. And I think schedules and the event was basically catered around the athletes and really showcasing us to our best, and so yeah, the same kind of accommodations in France, just like in Aspen, where it was just a good event, and you feel good at those events. That's when you really want to throw down and you feel comfortable, on a good course. And so X Games France was awesome, and it was also nice to split up X Games a bit, because having 1 event a year one main huge event a year is great, but 2 is better. Yeah. 2 is more fun, yeah.
We're looking at your 2011 X Games at Aspen, so that would be your 2nd gold at Aspen.
Yeah. Okay, so a lip slide on the down box there. This, I think, I remember being a little, front side swap to switch. Oh.
Big rainbow. I remember.
Wow, a little overshooting. Sammy did the
there.
sickest stuff. Back 4 off that cannon. I love the cannon. So that was a big feature at X Games. And I know a lot of people had a hard time with it, but I loved it.
Yeah, you had an option of just jumping or doing the cannon to start off the jumps.
Yeah. Man, these jumps looking back, woo! Those were some
perfect.
They're perfect. So yeah, looking at that course, definitely a lot tighter than in France, but like yeah, such a good feeling when you're done with that. Like it's so satisfying when you, oh my God, my family. I never watched these videos. Excuse me, that's so sweet. My dad's pretty well known among my friends for like just being like, wow, going crazy
Your
at the
biggest
bottom.
fan.
Yeah. So I'll meet people, you know, and my dad will come up, like, oh, I saw your dad. That's the guy on the video. Like, yeah, that's George. So, yeah, it's fun to see.
Yeah, you're right. It's crazy the difference where in teen you had almost time to do some carving.
Yeah,
in
you're
between.
carving, you're cruising, which is nice, but also like gives you, there's pros and cons for both types of courses, you know, because it gives you more room to think when you're in France cruising, whereas X is just like boom, 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 like it's so fast.
Which one would you say you liked most?
I liked X Games, Aspen. Aspen was like my all-time favorite, but also because of like the energy at the actual in the city of Aspen, like because it's been there for so many years, like it's really a staple in that town, and we're just all so welcome over there. So yeah, just the entire energy. If there's anyone out there considering X Games, I really would recommend going once
Just
in your
going to see it?
lifetime. Yeah, just to see it as a spectator, it's incredible, and the town lights up. Like it's just such a good time. So book your tickets, folks.
Now we're looking at
Oh, wow.
2011 teen. So then
Oh my gosh.
second teen or like
2011, 10 years ago? Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's crazy.
and as much as it's far away to me, it seems 2011 in my mind is not that
I
far
know,
away.
I know. When I think of it, the memories, they don't feel that far, but 10 years is a good chunk
When
of
you
time.
think of everything that happened, yes, it's far, but when you look at it, it's like
I know. It does feel like just yesterday. It's crazy. Wow. Here it was, almost.
Disaster 1. Oh,
Disaster 2. I almost
that's
didn't
the
hit
year
the
JF won. Also, because I just saw shitty weather,
Oh,
intense course,
yeah.
and it just looked like that for you, where you're like hucking in the
Yeah.
snowstorm to try
Yeah.
and get your speed.
Yeah, and now you're tucking, yeah, just trying to make it. So those are never ideal conditions. This event, if I remember correctly, it wasn't like, you know, it's just unfortunate when you have to drop in with poor weather because
For these types, it's like
woo,
just trying to get to the end.
I'm just trying to get to the end. Yeah, it's like more survival, but it's also super thrilling too. I mean, there's a place for all of it. The staple cab 10, you know, I got to say, it was one of my favorite tricks. I love it. I love the flow of it.
It was really your trick. Oh,
What
I think
happened?
So
Did
that
I-
might have been your.
Oh.
Is there another run on that video?
Yeah, so seeing the weather, I'm not surprised that I
Well,
I must have
you ended
bobbled
up
and then
winning
ended
it,
up-
but
yeah.
this video, it's weird because they say gold medal run, but no, that's not it.
sometimes,
Yeah.
you know what? Looking at that, my eyes look so red. But guys, I'm not stoned. I promise. I wasn't stoned. But wow, it must be just the elevation,
I think the lights.
the lights, and like skiing all day.
So,
But I ain't stoned.
watching 2012 Aspen, so your third gold in a row.
Oh wow,
Oh, and that's the year of the 1080 that you did in your slope run.
that's right.
Is it?
2012. My God, that's
I feel
quite
like
a year.
Switch 7 was really your trick, but I always felt like you had the 1080 just as good. Like if you wanted to, or it seemed like strategic to me where you were like, I know I can win with the Switch 7, so why risk it kind of?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, like sometimes I think it's really commendable, you know, and I respect when an athlete will do their, you know, their best, meaning like and really throw some of their hardest tricks. I think that's really commendable and cool. But I can't deny like that sometimes or that there was like a calculated aspect behind my runs. I wasn't as confident landing a cab 10 as I was a switch 7. And if I did feel like that was a good enough run, and especially considering, you know, weather conditions and stuff, like if I felt that I wasn't totally confident, then I would stick to something that I knew better.
Yeah. Which is fine. Like the same thing would go these days for guys, let's say that they could try a triple at the end of the run, But if they know or don't feel safe, they'll do a double and like
Yeah, if it's good enough for that day, then because part of being a good competitive athlete is having that strategy. And yeah, part of being a good competitive athlete is having that strategy and yeah, making the calls, playing the moves, because it's also, sustainability exercise.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be standing by the end of the season, and
you want to win one X Games, but you also want to win the next one.
It's exactly, you want to show up at the next event, and so, going through my career, I went through my fair share of very significant, injuries, many reconstructions, and so I was very aware of the risks. And you just have to.
And one thing that was good strategically is that a lot of times, well, most of the times, the jumps were at the end, and you had the upper echelon with rail. So strategically, you knew already getting at that point that you were already in the lead, kind of, in terms of what you had done.
Yeah, I definitely I knew I think my rail game was more my forte, right? And so so I just, if I didn't think that I could perform my hardest and best tricks on jumps, then I would really try to hone in on the rails and make those stand out, and then just do the jumps solid and clean, and use the rails as more of my strength to gain points. Oh my God, 2012. Before I even drop in, we have to talk about, this is the year that Sarah passed. Oh. And so she was hurt
she was hurt in
January.
Right before,
that's right. So we found out at Tour, which was right before X Games, and it was, obviously completely devastating and a complete shock throughout the entire free ski world, and probably ski world, just in general, anyone who'd ever met her. So it's just X Games is always a huge deal, and there's so much of your heart and soul put into it, but obviously, the whole situation with Sarah made it so much more, I don't know, impactful or just heavy, in a horribly sad way, but also in a way that I just really felt like I was carrying her torch, and I wanted to, do my best for her. So she was definitely right there, in the start gate right now that we're
thinking
seeing
about her.
Yeah, and I think she was there, Yeah. So, and I think this is my third run too. I had botched the cab 9 on my first 2 runs, sitting in third place. So I didn't have much to lose, right? Because I could have. Am I allowed to talk while it's going?
Yeah. Because I watched it this morning, and Mike Douglas is saying at the end, "Oh, is she gonna go for the cab 9?" And then you surprise him with a 10. And was that something, like you said earlier, that you were more comfortable with landing switch, or with the injuries that you've had? Was that a thought at that time, like, fuck it, let's go to 10?
Yeah, the cab 9 was never, I was always, after my first knee injury, I was always pretty iffy with forward landing tricks, but I still wasn't too comfortable with the cab 10, but neither was I comfortable with the cab 9 either. I don't really know why I was going for it, because it's such a scary trick for me to land 2.5 to forward. But anyway, I was just I'm in third place. I'm last at drop, which is a great position. I enjoyed it. So I know where I stand. So I had nothing to lose. At that point, I had a medal already. So it's just F it. If I get to the bottom jump, I'm going for it, Yeah. And I made it to the bottom jump. I loved those X Games courses. And I loved little grabs too, on rails, off rails.
Yeah, those are so trendy right now.
Yeah, they're super trendy now. I must have set the trend. No, I'm joking. It was Henrik, Phil, those guys. Wow, the cab 10, man. Of course, I'll never forget that moment.
I think it doesn't show the run.
I think I remember most actually at the bottom, talking to my parents before I went up for my third run. And I was just I leaned in and I was like, I'm going to go for the fucking cab 10. Doing it. But I didn't tell my coach, nothing. I didn't want anyone to know.
So, yeah, your 2012 run.
Yeah, my 2012 run, coming in switch, my fave position, a little grab off the rail, which is always a nice little touch.
Flat rail to big drop.
Yeah,
to
there was a
switch.
big drop. It's funny looking at these on camera. It's definitely not even as big as it. It's bigger than it looks. I mean, those jumps
Yeah.
are also so poppy. Yeah, you can see like just like you land basically right after you have to turn your head and you're into the next. Oh, the money booter. Boom. Wow, I can't even tell you. I mean, I don't know, what a whirlwind looking back and like.
And you see all the girls that know what you just did.
Yeah,
that like you stepped up the game.
You know, those are the moments I remember most. It's just like the bottom, like the hype, the energy, you know? So much energy. We had such good days out there. Yeah, this is one of my best memories. It was crazy. What a trip to look back. I know I don't sound excited, but I'm like, wow, I'm almost just like consumed by this.
The memories.
Yeah,
Like-
just like, wow, it's really taking me back.
And it looks like it's more you remembering the feeling that you
Yeah,
had.
it's the feeling for sure. It's just like the nostalgia. It's
And-
real, you know? Wow.
You had other ones. Yeah, and as you said, the flow in it, going from a jump to another is crazy. Like Belmar was telling me, is run that he would do a lot is dub 12, switch dub 12, and right dub 12. And I was like, how do you choose when you do your dub 12 or your right dub 12? And he was saying, I do the right dub 12 to start off because I know I land with the good shoulder looking for my switch jump. And I was like, holy shit, there's that level of...
That's how little time there
Because
is.
if I
Like, because just that time you take to whip your head around is like
Too much.
you're on the kicker. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So when you land, like if you want to whip your head around, like you basically, you don't land looking over the regular. You kind of land looking down already into the next, if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
becomes such a dance of like... having
It's a dance.
yeah.
That's right. Exactly. You know, and like one of the things I always said about slope style is like the creative aspect, you know, like that's what I love about it, at least, is like you're encouraged to have different style, different axes, all this stuff, you know? And so yeah, it's all about like this, like coming into this flow and just like being, I don't know, this sounds so cheesy, but just being the artist out there, you know?
But it's true.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, that kind of tightness in course, like it also kind of separates, I don't know, I think it, like that's nuts, like what you just told me about Belmar, like the whole 3 dubs, left, right, switch, my God, like when you put a course that tight, it separates the top, you know, because it's the top who can put it all together in that like 1 second time frame. It's insane. Oh, this one. This is, bittersweet memories because my friend Ashley got very hurt right before, in the run right before me. But one of the runs I'm most proud of in my life.
So 2013, you had won bronze in 09.
Yes.
And then numerous golds back to back after, and this was silver. So did you feel disappointment with getting silver, or it was more the context, or, you know?
There's context, so I'll tell you after the run. But so silver, usually it sounds obnoxious, but I wouldn't be happy
cool,
about
like,
it.
Kind of blind surface swap.
Yeah,
on the first round.
yeah. So this, like, I changed my rail run up because I felt like on the first feature, my first 2 runs, so like it was all on, ooh, you see that was such a quick front swap. Gotta say that was pretty
Switch
tight.
on
And
four
so
out on the
that
cannon,
that's
dope.
like, that's pretty dope, I gotta say. And then these like weird bio 5s I was doing that were so fucking terrifying, man. And the whole course is like black ice.
Yeah, the landings. You're going to pitch dark.
Oh my God, it was so scary. And like, so that's where I could have done a bigger trick, but I was just like, cab 5, let's like land
safe.
a run, because I was in last place. Yeah, you know what happened this time is, so I had, you know, I was whatever, defending gold medal champion, blah, blah, blah. Terrell was coming up on the scene, all this chatter, oh, TT, you know, and she was real good. She's an amazing skier who's a mom now, which is insane. But because I know her as like a little girl, but yeah, you know, so there was a lot of chatter, and I had planned I thought it was a good run, but you know, talking about doing, you know, a first feature and doing something dope and like gaining momentum. So in this event, I fell on the first feature both times. So just like the biggest buzzkill ever. And so,
Was it the same trick that you were trying?
no, I changed it up. Not first feature, second feature. I was trying 2 on, and I kept clipping right on this one.
Two on the box?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It was
on the up box?
I know,
Why?
dude. Because I was trying to separate my
Yeah.
rails. You see, I was trying to make my rails really solid. Because my jumps were good, but they weren't like so above, you know? They were just good, you know? Anyway, and so I was obviously not in a good position. Then one of my best friends, Ashley Battersby, is down. Third run, last run of hers, and I'm the last competitor, and she'd gone right before me. She's down. 10 minutes, 20 minutes. They had me go up and click, okay, you ready? I'd be like, okay, I'm ready. And then the radio would come in and be like, never mind, unclick. And so it's like, it doesn't sound like, you just hear about it, doesn't sound that intense, but like when you're up there, like 1 minute is an eternity.
Yeah.
And I think I waited 45 minutes.
Plus, when you're in the zone, everything
You're in the
seems longer.
zone, you know? So like, and you're trying to extend that zone period. Your coach is there. My dad was there, and he was, you know, I could tell he's stressed, and just,
Was
and
he
then I
on
could,
the top with you?
yeah, on the top with me. And I remember going to my coach, Tobin was a Canadian team coach, and was like, Tobin, like, what's the speed? Cause like all you could see, it was late afternoon, so all you could see was just like the shade coming in quick.
The more you wait, the more shade there is.
Exactly.
And that shade is sketchy.
It's sketchy because it's fast, and so that's when it becomes scary, because speed really changes.
Changes the speed and the visibility.
Exactly.
Like on your takeoff
On
and
your
for
takeoff,
spotting
your
the
landing, exactly, all of that. So things were just changing, and I remember asking Tobin 2 or 3 times, like, Tobin, what's the speed? What am I going to do? And he'd be like, he didn't, you know, he's just like, you just have to feel this one out, you know. So it's like, all right. And it was just like, I just remember going through the gamut of like everything you can feel up there, like the dread, the fear, the like, oh my God, am I going to pull this off? Like, you just have 45 minutes to think about those things. Then on top of that, of course, I was worried about my girl, you know, who ended up blowing her knee, which like could have been worse, I guess, but also a bad outcome. So that's why, looking back, like, I was a silver, and it's one of my most proud runs, just because mentally that was one of my hardest events ever. And I think
And
it
especially,
was one of my smoothest runs ever too, competing.
And props to you for pulling it down on the shade, because
It's not fun. It's really dark.
I grew up riding Avila, and it's famous for not being positioned well with the sun. So all winter long, you have those kind of takeoffs and landing, and
Yeah,
it's tight.
It's hard. It really does affect things. It really does affect things.
And then 4th X Games gold at teen.
4th, wow,
Right
that's
after
crazy.
that 2013 one.
Oh, the cab 4 on
Switched
the rail too.
Yeah,
It wasn't even a
that's-
box.
It's crazy. It's
Sometimes I look at the shit I used to do, and I'm just like, it's incredible. I have to just laugh, man. I have to laugh. Oh God, the left sides, those were the bane of my existence, truly. And anyone who ever watches me spin left side, I'm sorry.
the pain of having to start spinning both ways.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, you're.
Damn.
It's like not even clear if it's a misty or
It's
bio.
a bio or misty. I know. Ooh, the cab 2 out. Yeah, that was smooth.
Like the rails on that were pretty
good. Really good. Yeah. I mean, definitely could have been smoother. I think I look at a lot of runs, and I'm very critical. I think I could have been a lot smoother a lot of time, but you know, so it goes.
Looking at your misty/bio 5s,
It's so rollerblade.
yeah.
It's so a
The grab.
rollerblade trick.
But to me, it always looked like, I was like, it looks like the body wants to go to 9. And you're like, no.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I had a hard time with, you know, because rollerblading, I didn't flip, and I didn't spin left. So all the things that I had done in rollerblade, I could transfer really well, but I didn't learn that stuff. So I had a very hard time kind of trying to keep up. Whereas now everyone's spinning left, right, doubles, triples, always.
But
Holy F and crap.
you're really not the only one to have had that struggle. Like,
Yeah.
JF mentioned that a big part that made him stop was he had problem with right side spins. And for him, he was really noticing that he was falling behind, because his only right side spins was a right 9, which at a certain point was really not doing it.
Yeah.
And he had spent a lot of time learning right dub 12s at the water ramps and doing it and everything. And in the summer, let's say, and then the fall after that, he tries and do it. And it's like he has never tried them before. He falls on his face and everything. And he was like, okay, like, and I think it was at the same point, like trying to go to Sochi, and he was like, okay, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were
Yeah.
on that cusp, you know, kind of. Yeah, it's you know, these days it seems like seeing some of the kids start so early, and like they're doing like all spins, all ways from the beginning. Like, God, I wish I had, you know, I wish I had done that. But like by the time I was trying on naturals, like I was, you know, I was,
well, the progression was so intense that you were mid-career, and like, especially at your time where I was telling the same thing to JF, is that between where you guys started and when you ended, the sport is like a totally different thing.
yeah, totally. I mean,
standards of
huge,
being
yeah,
the best.
transition. So yeah, you know, but that's the evolution of sport. So it goes, and certainly I'm amazed at what I'm seeing these days. Oh my God!
And then your last X Games gold,
This
right?
is so emotional for me. Oh my gosh! I'm not gonna cry, but I don't know if I've ever watched this actually.
Lip on.
You know,
Where-
this is the most relaxed I've ever been in my life
Maybe
competing.
a bit of context, seeing it, like, we've talked that you had your knee injury, you are on a rush to come back.
That's right.
The Olympics were coming up. And I'm guessing that you weren't 100% confident in your skiing skills, because from what I've heard from knee injuries is that you need a couple of months just to, you know, get back the confidence, but then you're thrown right away into X Games. So I'm thinking you're not going to throw a switch then. Like, you're not in that mental state, right?
No, I was not in that mental state. No, and you know, that was, yeah, there was so much going on at that X Games. That was right before the Olympics. So I didn't want to, X Games is always so important to me. So I wanted to perform my best, but at the same time, I wanted to stay intact.
Don't want to get hurt a month
Exactly. And so I think it was even 2 weeks like before, and everything was so tight. And yeah, like this, I blew my knee. I remember X Games was exactly 5 months post-op. And if you've ever blown your knee, or I had ACL reconstruction like that, the minimum amount of time, you know, just to start skiing, let alone jumping, none of that, at 6 months, they say. So to be doing what I was doing at 5 months was absurd a
really
little bit.
pushing it.
Yeah, but what I did is I opted for generally there's two types of grafts for ACLs. There's a hamstring and patellar tendon. Those are kind of like the most prominent. And then, but I went with a Lars ligament. It's a rubber ligament. And the idea, it's less known. The results are less known. But the idea is you can ski faster. You can get back faster. So I just went for it. It was purely to get to the Olympics, really. And I found a doctor who would do it. And so, yeah, it was crazy. 5 months post-op ACL. And I was, you know, I was skiing the X Games. It was unreal, man. I can't even believe that happened.
Were you talking with Wallish that season? Because he had a different strategy, which was he didn't do a surgery. He was waiting, right?
I know, yeah.
And he was riding on he was having how do you call that? A
brace?
A brace, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
He had a brace on and was just like on Advils and trying to get through.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, he had done a short movie with, I think, the 4x9 guys about the whole process, and you could see the behind the scenes of him in the tents and like with the physio and trying to get by and like doing his runs accordingly to land a certain way or switch to help with the knee. And
Yeah.
it seemed like,
I mean, that's adding a whole other level of like, not only do you have to think about going into the jump 100 kilometers an hour and all the tricks you're doing on and off the rail and in the jump, but you're also thinking like, okay, I really have to favor my right knee on this landing, you know, because you don't want to blow up. Really, I mean, it's a whole other factor, and it's a heavy one. Yeah, it's not a fun position, and certainly, you know, it's on your mind, you know. Even 2 years post-op, you know, it's once you've blown your knee and you've felt it go and you've had to build from zero, you know, you don't forget that easily, you know. And so, yeah, it's usually, you know, it's always on your mind. And in a sense, it's a good thing. You know, you have to have a bit of fear and awareness of.
Yeah. So going in, lip slide.
You know, I was feeling good at this event. I definitely had my knee on my mind, but.
Disaster
Ooh,
2-1. That's big.
And, yeah, it's a big one. But you know that down, flat, down.
Back to the
and both
gapping
these
out.
rails were so, like, the angles were so steep. Like that down, flat, down. They used it many years. And it was so, like, you wouldn't even want to ride the kinks. Because it was like,
You have
thunk,
to disaster
thunk,
it.
thunk. Yeah, you want to disaster it.
But yeah, that run doesn't look like someone who's coming back from.
No,
was
something
crazy.
about it. I think just because I had the Olympics coming up, that I was just like, this is a bit of a practice. Like, I still took it seriously, but I just remember this is probably the most relaxed I've felt about results, if you will. Like, I was just like, just cruise, do you. And I remember I always listen to hip hop. In fact, I can tell you almost all the songs I've ever heard while I was listening to like a winning run. And this was the only event I ever was listening to Blondie. And it was awesome. Some old rock. It was great. Oh my God. Okay, so the bio wasn't as bioed, but yeah, still pretty good. Yeah.
Switch 5.
Damn. That's a lot of time in the air on these kickers, eh? Oh my
Left
God,
5.
the left. Every time, even watching it, I'm just like,
7.
ooh. Yeah, crazy, man. What a relief. Every time you land those runs, it's just like the craziest rush.
The last one.
My last
I
X
always
Games
found
medal
it funny
ever.
with the dad guy with the camera doing a follow cam.
Yeah.
behind. They always look like total Jerry's.
They do look like them, yeah. Oh,
Switch step jab. That's rare.
Yeah, that was nice. A little bit cork too. Nice. Gosh, I haven't seen these videos in years. Wow.
The Jerry guy.
I know. The Jerrys are always great. Wow. Looking at this, I haven't watched ski videos in a while because, to be honest, it kind of, with not being able to do sport, it's hard sometimes. And this is like giving me such like nostalgic feels in a great way. It's really nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it was great chatting about those old runs and chatting about skiing in general.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, hope everything goes well on your side, business-wise and life-wise.
Thank you
for
so
everything.
much. All the same to you. Thanks a lot for reaching out about this. Really
Yeah,
cool.
well,
good luck with your podcast. Man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm stoked, and I'm sure people will be stoked to hear about you, because even though you've been out for a couple of years, I think you've made a stamp in skiing history that no one is forgetting, and then no one forgets that. As I said, in my mind, I never like saying a GOAT, especially for sport, because it's unfair for other ones. But like in my mind, you're on the top GOATs of skiing.
Wow. I mean, that's very generous, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So this is it for episode 26 with Kaya Turski. Big thanks to Kaya for coming on the podcast and being so open about everything. Thanks again to the sponsors, Dic Anns Restaurants, Access Board Shop, and Planks Clothing. Also, don't forget to check us out on Patreon. Peace.